Hey everybody, this is PD from the Spinner Rack, and today I'm going to do a video on the origin of Batman. Now, I did the comparison, well, it was like a loose comparison of Batman Year 1 and Zero Year. So I thought I should do a new three-part thing where we go through the three different origins of Batman, right? And kind of do it as a complete sort of piece. Now, I wish I had the alter ego issue, but I'm going to have to put a picture up to give you just some tidbits on the history of it rather than say this, because I know there's been videos and stuff on Bob Kane and Bill Finger, and this isn't going to be that long into that type of stuff because it's been covered. It's been covered like it's been like, even though to most people it was like an excavation in some sort of tomb with a whole lot of gold and whatnot. But ultimately, if you went back into the past, or even in the 90s, and go to Alter Ego, or if you went to Steranko, History of Comics, they would give you the tidbits on Batman's origin. They would give you, both would give you Bill Finger, giving you a history about him, and History of Comics would give you an interview that Steranko did with both Bob Kane and Bill Finger. And Bill Finger would talk about the creation of Batman, the idea that from this page, this issue here, the original drawing was a character that was blonde with a domino mask that they say kind of looked like Superman with bat wings. And of course, they say the editor, has them to redo it. And Bill Finger got involved and got a, what did he say? Got a dictionary, hoping there was some drawings of some bats, and there was. So he told Bob Kane to copy that. And at the same time, the Garland Schumer, I think a lot of people talk about how a lot of the book was a lot of swipes from classic stuff. Same with that cover. So we'll have a picture of that too. But then you go to History of Comics, another video it talked about how the story takes from a shadow story. And they made a big deal about it. But in History of Comics issue 1, this is issue 2. In issue 1, they say, he says, I borrowed from, I took from a shadow story. So it's like, if you just buy these things and go through your history, you'll get this stuff. I mean, it's there. I know that people have been like, Bill Finger didn't talk or didn't do anything or didn't say anything. He did. So he did do that. Roy Thomas, Steranko, the true historians had that information always there to be got. But since it was, it was all the rave, then it became, how could this happen? And we kind of looked at it in terms of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So, as a writer, Bill Finger is obviously a great talent, and he was definitely a loss that he wasn't named on the book all these years. So I just wanted to get that out. You got your history and your background and how they got created Batman. So let's just go through the first story, right? And so this famous first edition, this will be similar to like the reprints they're doing now, the facsimiles, but they kind of fell from favor because of resale value. But these, my parents got me a bunch of these, me and my brother, a bunch of these books. And I'm not sure if I had this one, but I seen that issue before. I had to have this one of these two, because maybe we're just like knucklehead kids and we didn't go back and read this, but read the other stories. And this is things you have to remember looking at this. Look at the origin, and you have to take out all of your thinking of year one. We have Bruce Wayne and Commissioner Gordon, who's clearly older, sitting together and talking about stuff. And he tells them that the Batman kind of puzzles them, right? And then they hear about a stabbing, and stabbing at this sort of lab where the Chemical King is stabbed. Right, old Lambert's been murdered. So Bruce Wayne, who's kind of a budding detective, he just decides to go with him. See, he's got the hat, and they go out there, and then they think that his son killed his father. He says he didn't do it. Right? He tells them about it, finds him in there, and then explains how he got his fingerprints on the stuff, right? And they both looking, pondering, right? And Bruce decides he's going to go home, right? And the other partner gets shot. And while he's escaping, Batman's there, right? And when I saw this, I was like, I'm a big fan of Batman. When I saw this, I liked the purple gloves, this sort of outfit. It was just like, wow, this is really cool. Right? And Batman, as I like to say, puts the beats on him. And at this period, the cops are not too happy with the Batman, right? And Mr. Kane is murdered, right? And two partners are dead. Batman driving a regular car, right? I think some of these shots were taken from the novel or the pulp story of The Shadow, right? Besides some of possibly the figures taken from Hal Foster, right? So then the other partner, he gets, and they're going to put him in this gas thing. And Batman gets in there in time and messes it up and frees him, right? And Batman takes out that guy, right? And so your assistant tried to kill me, right? But then we find out, this guy is actually the bad guy, right? Batman stops him, and then we get the explanation of the story. See, we get to hear the classic comic book ending where we explain what happens. It gives you all the details, right? And then he's like, they're going to send me to the chair. No, they're not going to send you to the chair. And Batman knocks him, falls into the vat, and then says a fitting end for his kind. And I was just wowed by that. I was just like, that was just the coolest thing ever, right? And then Bruce Wayne is like, he's not impressed by it. And then Commissioner Gordon is kind of like, Bruce Wayne is a nice young chap, but he certainly must leave a boring life. Seems disinterested in everything, right? And I think Bill Finger also kind of struggled with his writing at this period. It was very early on. It was very young at this period, right? And then, of course, an ad for Superman written up top. And then we realize that Bruce Wayne is actually a Batman. So it's actually a mystery within the mystery, right? Right. So they're going to tell more stories with the Batman, right? So since we got to here, we got a lot to go over, right? So we're not going to do much with this edition, but this has something important in it also, right? So this is a little too far over. So here, we open up this one, same thing, like facsimile type of thing. We get the origin of Batman, right? So who he is and how he came to be, right? So gathering, I'm making it up. They're truly trying to say Batman's in his 20s. They come from a movie. They don't say what movie it is. They want the necklace the lady's wearing. And then you see here that as Thomas Wayne tries to stop the crook, he said, "You asked for it." And when Martha calls the police and says, "Help," he said, "This will shut you up," right? So the origin is pretty clear, right? And the boy's shocked seeing his parents dead. And you can see they're trying to go for that with Spider-Man when they did at the end of the great power comes great responsibility, right? So this is where he starts warring on criminals. He gets himself in shape. He's not sure how to take the action. And then the bat flies in. And he said, "I shall become that bat," right? So yeah, there you go. We got the Batman origin. This shot that everyone has kind of done. Everyone and his brother has done this image. And since we're here, there was about 10 stories in the Golden Age that kind of set up the Batman we know now. Just like setting up his origin of, well, we have one of those stories here, which I'm going to show you. But they're setting up the person who killed his parents, Alfred, how Commissioner Gordon and him became friends. And we're going to get to a book that's going to put that all into one piece. Now you're thinking, no, I don't know what you're thinking. I'll get to that later, right? So I have one of them, which is in this reprint from the 80s. It was free, and I kept it forever. It's not a Dave Mazzucchelli. It's an actual Batman issue, what is it? Issue 47, right? It's like the last story in here, right? And at this point, they were crediting the artists, which is they have Bob Kane and Lou Schwartz, but Bob Kane probably didn't write this, so it's so this is a common occurrence in comics where you have an origin and then they would retell the origin to add some more tidbits to it. This is how Batman did it. So they added well, you'll see these characters later, but we'll get into it later. Right? So here, he gets the paper, his kid reading the paper, right? So we have almost like a movie, right? Batman and Robin are chasing down these guys and they fall over this cliff. Their truck falls over the cliff and the driver dies. But at the same time, a secret door and some people come out. They're fighting with Batman and Robin. They pull out a gun, and he pulls out a gun, and then he gets shot. And the police are like, "Hey, it was between you or him, so we took him down." Right? Right. So they're looking for somebody who's probably a top guy, right? And then they have a person, his name is Joe Chill, and he sees the face, and he's like, "Whoa, this is the person who killed his parents," right? So they have a retelling of it, right? And the dial's a little different. Take your necklace. "Oh, not my necklace. You hoodlum, don't you dare put your hand on my wife," he said. "Maybe you'll keep quiet now," right? And then this one added in that Martha had a heart attack, where clearly in the other one, he says he's going to do something to her, right? And this, we have Bruce Wayne staring at him. This nice effect, seeing the eyes and it kind of scaring off the criminal, right, from killing him, right? So it gives you a nice bit of why he said he never found, right? So this is where he swears to his parents. We had the workout, we've added some things, and once again, he's trying to figure out how to disguise himself. And he says he's going to become that bat, and then this image is redone here, right? Really cool stuff. And Batman has to take over this case, and he's decided not to involve Commissioner Gordon or Robin, because it's going to lead to losing his identity, right? And Joe Chill's running this operation. We can see it here. It's a nice setup for the operation, nice wide. And Batman has the idea to bring him business, right? So this was always cool, seeing him in this thing. The printing is horrible, so he's starting to lose this image, right? And Batman comes in to mess with all of their plans. I guess this is 50s, so kind of like Prohibition. So all this stuff, gambling is illegal. So Batman is messing stuff just for context. And he messes all that stuff up, right? And Batman kind of they're allowing Batman to do this sort of thing, right? So the guy goes and runs to Chill, tells him what happens. And Chill thinks it's a trap and immediately kills him, right? Then Batman comes in. Joe Chill is saying it's self-defense. But Batman is at odds, right? So they have kind of flashback. Then Batman doesn't know what to do here. He says it might be the end of his career. So he comes to him and he's threatening him. And he knows that he killed someone. That talks about Bruce Wayne. And he says, I am Bruce Wayne. And it's like, what? And Batman, the idea what's going to do, he threatens him that he's going to follow him everywhere, right? And then he gives him something to remember him by. And then he's like, uh-oh, he got to tell his boys, right? He said, he killed Batman's father. What? And he said, because of that, he became Batman. And they're like, what? You, because of you? And they immediately shoot him. And it's like, hey, wait a second, we should find out who he is. And Batman comes in the nick of time and beats the hell out of all these guys. And he said, guess you got me after all, right? The murder of Thomas Wayne close, but it should be Wayne and Martha. But they sort of changed that, right? So that gets some sort of the cool stuff here. So we got through that, right? So I was going to say something different, but now since I know the original origin had him pointing the gun at Martha, right? So this would be Earth 2. There would be Earth 1, and people would be talking about Earth 2. So in this edition, I'm just going to show you one quick thing, right? Because while Batman is traveling with Ra's al Ghul, he starts to think about how he became Batman, right? And because he's in this thing, Robin's been kidnapped, possibly dead. So he's kind of like, thinking about his origin, getting up to the point of Robin. So we have here, comes help. She says the same thing. He says, shut up, lady. We see her going back to the thing of shooting her. Like all through the 50s and some other points, they kept saying that she had a heart attack because of her weak heart. And Neil Adams went back to where it was, right? And then him crying, the criminal running off. And then this time, it's been updated, right? Neil Adams updated instead of doing the scientist thing, more like a businessman working out. And the bat comes in, and doing that same image. But then we get into Robin's origin here, right? So we see how things work and how comics, the origin can change. And equivalent to what I showed you here, there were a bunch of stories, which would be Alfred came later, way later than the early Batman, or at least over a year after. What else? The history of what happened after Batman, all that since all that stuff, there were bits and pieces that were in a whole bunch of different issues, someone decided, what if we kind of cleaned all of that stuff up, right? And that leads to some controversy too, because before we get into that, we have like in this Shadow of the Bat, which was a reprint of a 70s Batman story. When Batman comes in here, they reference Batman #1 and Detective 46. So this means from the entire beginning of Batman to now is not, the early Batman is not Earth 2. This is all Earth 1. We'll have a little tidbit at the end about Earth 2, but everything you've seen here so far is Earth 1, right? Now you're thinking, hey, what's in the regular Bat? Remember, the Batman changed his outfit, so the Earth 1 Batman didn't start out with an oval bat with the yellow thing in there. So, and I'm going to show you the book that kind of put all these things together, right? And that's going to be, which I don't know if we're going to get through all this. I knew this was going to be a long one, but The Untold Legend of the Batman. This book is going to fill in those gaps. I'm going to take the 10, well, I guess it'd be 11, but with the Batman #1, I'm going to take Batman #1, all of the 10 stories that connect to Batman's origin, and I'm not including Robin's origin, but basically all of the bits, and put it into this mini series so you can see it all. Now, for some behind the scenes on that, John Byrne heard they were doing a Batman mini. So after hearing it, he was like, I want to do that. So he went over to DC, and this is an often told tale. He said he would do it. They said Byrne costs too much. He's like, I'll do it, whatever. And he said, but I got a window in my schedule to do it. So I said, yeah, fine. So Lean Wayne was a little late getting him stuff, and it was him having to research and pull out books. I'm not sure why it was late though, but it was late. Byrne was only able to do one. DC went to the press and complained, and they also had offered Byrne his regular rate to try to finish it, but he couldn't do it. So they kind of took it out on him in the press, and then Terry Austin pushed back and said there's nothing wrong with the art. The art is the same, like the way he drew on the X-Men. It was fully detailed pencils. Supposed to be Terry and Byrne and Terry doing it, but it turned out to be Byrne and Jim Aparo doing finishes on it, right? So here we go, right? And they have, I think, a bunch of editions. They also have this version of it here. I think there probably is a trade somewhere, but I don't have that. So let's go through this. We are at half-hour mark, and I was able to show you at least one Silver Age Batman story, but there was, as I said, 10 of them. This is taking those 10 stories and like all the origins of Robin, Batgirl, the villains, all into this mini series, right? So this is going to be most of Batman's origin, right? So Batman's in the cave. He's got to open the mail. Now you're thinking, hey, Batman opened mail. Batman gets mail. No. Ultimately, this is a bit that would happen, I think, in the Silver Age, where Batman would be opening his mail during it. So it's not strange. So don't worry. He's opening this package. And there's another bit that is not clear. There's no flashback to it. Batman was caught in an explosion, and he's kind of off center before this. So that's the only thing I can say, because they mentioned it a few times. You're not going to see it in the pictures, right? So Batman opens it up, and this harkens back to the outfit his father had at this banquet, right? And then Batman goes to see it, and it's gone, right? And it says, this is only the beginning, Batman. And he said, before I'm done, I will destroy you. Then here we mentioned that the Batman was an explosion with Catwoman and he has a headache, right? But and we go and harken back to a story from the Silver Age where Batman's father was went to a masquerade party as something similar to Batman in a bat outfit, right? And he gets caught up with this mob boss, Lex Moxon, right? And then he kind of helps out during there, and these guys go to jail, right? So this ultimately, well, I guess I have to say it later, right? So he says he's going to pay, right? So then, of course, he gets free early. Now, this is where the story changes, right? So this Moxon guy is the guy who hires Joe Chill. And Joe Chill kills. And this has going back to the original where she says, he kills Thomas. She says something. She calls the police out. And he kills her. And it has that moment I showed you where Bruce Wayne stares at him and the guy runs off. But here we have something else from the Silver Age, I believe. We have Leslie Tompkins, who's someone who was there and consoled Bruce Wayne after his parents died, where he was really distraught. And then she came and helped. I think it's a Denny O'Neil story, right? And also during the Silver Age, there was another story where we get introduced to his uncle Philip and his appointed guardian, which was what is it, Chilton? Her name was Chilton, Miss Chilton, right? And she was in the story of the most important women in Batman's life, right? So Batman's going to figure this thing out, and this is nothing that's been changed, right? Because we've seen him, they're swearing in front of his parents' grave in the Silver Age a couple of times, and in this story, those two are behind him while he's swearing, right? So it's been kind of retconned out to make this thing a little more serious. And then while he's working out through his life, right, we see a moment which we didn't see before, right? And this cuts to another story of how, Bruce Wayne trained to be a detective. And we're going to get another bit that was a Silver Age story where Batman disguised himself as an outfit so that he could work with this guy, which is this was a great detective. Let's go back. All right, so I went too far back. Harvey Harris, right? So, and Harvey Harris, Batman thinking he might be a greater detective because he figured out who he was and he sent this thing to him, right? But he was sending it to Bruce Wayne, right? So they work together and he trains and fights and learns some other things from him. And Harvey Harris thinks he might be the greatest detective of all. Now, this period right here, I think is added in where he's studying, but it was like from the one shot of him doing the chemicals, we see him at college doing this stuff, right? And then he's in the criminal justice major, and he has a little debate, and trying to tell him that he has to follow the law, right? Right, and then we have the often done tale of he's there, and the next a bat coming trying to figure out what to do with his life and how to disguise himself. The bat comes in, and then we have Byrne doing it as a person in motion. not trying to capture. I think Bernie Wrightson has done it. Obviously, I just showed you Neil Adams, Jim Lee. I think there's a few others, right? And then we go through the classic thing of all the rogues gallery of characters that is fought, right? But then we get into that story, Batman 47, right? The guy comes out the car, and this has been truncated, so he gets right to the point, right? So this guy gets shot. Commissioner Gordon shows him a picture and realizes Joe Chill is the guy who killed his parents, right? Batman goes in. Byrne is adding a lot more drama to it, going to a close up, right? And then he tells him, and then Batman comes in after hearing that, and he says one thing different. The Batman didn't finish shoot. It was Bruce Wayne. He felt it was closed, but he was wrong, right? So that's when, at some point later, after seeing the outfit and going through, realizing that Moxon hired Chill to kill his parents, so he's going after him, and they can't get him. He beats a lie detector test, and he said because he has amnesia, he's not lying. He just doesn't remember any of that, right? And Robin gives the idea to go as the father, and that jars his memory. And he's like, he wants out of here because that's the guy put him in jail. And then even added for more dramatic effect, right? You'll feel like it's closed, but someone's after him, right? Whew. What are you doing? Not too bad. Trying to keep this. Hopefully, I'm getting all the information. And you're getting to see. At least you got to see one issue that was done from the past that kind of connected to this story, right? Someone's learned my secrets of my past, Robin. He's using them to destroy me, right? So Batman's going in, trying to figure out, get some leads, goes to a bar, and he's had it. He starts putting it on these guys. And he's about to finish this guy, and someone says, that's enough. Right? And Robin tells him to stop. And Batman stops and listens. Trying to find the person who stole the teeth and tear them to pieces as well. Right? And then he's saying Batman's taking this hard about someone taking his father's outfit. And then he remembers his, the death of his parents, which would be in, is it in Batman 1? I don't think so. I think I'm wrong. All right, so let's keep going. Then Batman comes to help him out, takes him home, and this one they kind of explain it differently. Said he's, since he's a bachelor, he can be his legal guardian instead of adopting him. So when later, I think Mark Wolfman had Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, in complaining, "Why didn't you adopt me?" He's a little bit older when he adopts Jason Todd, right? Right. So then here, Robin goes through the same rigmarole and all the training and whatnot, and then he pulls out a Robin costume, right? And he says he's gonna be Robin is one of his favorite. Robin Hood's his favorite character, and then he brings Robin in, Dick Grayson in, but he can't show what he can do, right? So he's kind of upset, and I think later in the comics they show Robin didn't have to be a total lame. He could play sports, but he just didn't have to be the best at it. He could be like number 2. I think that's what they said, right? And this is going from where he's at in the city to tunnel to the Batcave from the Rolling Foundation, right? And then we get into, but here we got the hint back to when he got the explosion. So they're kind of worried about Batman through this and all this thing. But we get to Alfred's history. He has a little bit of military history. He wanted to be an actor, but then his father Jarvis said he should, do the family business, which was be in service to someone, right? And he said he would respect that wish. Now, Alfred was heavyset originally, and he loses weight, I think, in his 3rd appearance, and he looks like this. That bit wasn't in there. All that's been truncated. And the sort of bumbling detective that Alfred once was, that's been truncated. How Alfred finds out. She does. No, actually, they're in a fight in Wayne Manor, and that's been knocked over. And this one, it's done totally seriously. There's no humor in it. Batman's hurt, and Alfred's there to help him, right? And then they take him on, and he becomes a part of the family, right? But he doesn't have any sort of He doesn't have any sort of paramilitary, paramedic training, right? So he's trying to figure out who is the culprit, who's the person who did it. So we get to the Joker's origin, where he's a Red Hood, and then to escape, he jumps into a vat of chemicals, and then he sees him with his face. They have it, so he's a little bit surprised. So the other one, he just starts laughing. Then they said it could be Two-Face. We get the Two-Face origin, where he gets in a trial, being a district attorney, gets something splashed in his face, acid splashed in his face. Then that pushes him over the edge and becomes Two-Face. And then Robin realized something's wrong with the car now, right? And the car explodes, and then Batman was like, only one of us will survive, right? So we're getting through it. 37 minutes, almost 40 minutes. We're on the last one of this, and we have one other thing to look at, and then we'll talk about the Earth 2 Golden Age Batman, right? So, at this point, this is issue 3, the end of it, right? The conclusion. Right, so the car's messed up. So Batman is going to go out and try to find some leads. So Robin calls up this auto mechanic, person who basically soups up race cars, and it's this guy here, right? And I think this is his first appearance, Jack Edison, and then so you guys demolish another car. That's as close as the humor as you can get in this thing. And Batman kind of saved him. So since there, he's the guy who puts together the Batmobile, and it's like a working friendship, right? And he has some updates for it, right? So Robin's gonna help him if he wants it or not. So Batman is doing his casework, trying to get some leads, and he's not really getting anything out of these guys. Right? He's asking around but not getting anything. So he goes to Commissioner Gordon, right? Surprises him, and he said, maybe you don't want to find any clues, because the person behind it is someone close to you, someone you care about. And that really surprises Batman, that it could be someone, and Batman's already off. But then we get to see how Batman and Commissioner Gordon connected, right? So Batman comes over, he leaves notes. The police are after him. He says, don't worry about it. Then he drops off the Joker, right? And Commissioner Gordon's like, this guy's kind of embarrassing us, figuring these cases out and stopping these guys and also getting away from us, right? So one day, Batman comes to talk, and Commissioner Gordon is immediately trying to arrest him, and they have their moment of truth. We've seen something like this in year one. He's got a gut to him, and Batman's talking to him, and then they calm down, right? And then Batman leaves, and he remembers it. So I'm going to hold here, and I'm going to give you one bit that in the original Golden Age stories, Commissioner Gordon goes after trying to track the Batman to being impressed by him, being embarrassed that he's stopping these crooks and finding them before they are, and then he compliments them, right? And it's not until Batman is taken to court in this Golden Age story where Commissioner Gordon has their back and he deputizes them. So this is a little different, where I think there's a later story, but it was a slowly a friend thing. I don't know if that was because of the comic code, or not the comic. Was it the comic code? No, because the parents were writing in, because Batman had a gun, stuff like that. So all that stuff has been kind of truncated, but it's taking all the elements and putting them in there. So all the stories that happen, this is kind of making it into that. Now, it could be that the Earth 2 one happened the way it originally happened, and this is the new origin, but it's not clear, right? So we got Barbara Gordon's origin, her working out and training, seeing her father work with Batman, and then she becomes a character. Then Robin comes in, still wanting to know, and then we have Bruce Wayne and Lucius Fox, and then we get a hint of how they connected. And I think that would make this I guess I should add Robin, and but Robin's story doesn't change, and add Lucius, so that would make it like 12 different stories. But this is definitely a Bronze Age character, right? So when he gets home, he's just feeling images of being with his father, and it's kind of overwhelming him, right? And then someone here, it's himself, right? Or his father, right? And I think this is something that who's this guy? Grant Morrison kind of did for his thing where he turned his father into a villain, right? And then they get into a fight. We realize it was Robin. And Robin did all this to jar Batman back to himself after the explosion, and he thanks him for it. And then Batman is standing over the city, and Batman is a legend, and legends can never die. And that's kind of why I did a little secrets of the Batman. And that's it, right? Oh, some utility belt, the stuff from the mansion, and the helicopters, right? So there we go. We got through it. So I wanted to leave the last thing to say about this is like the first chapter 1, right? Because the reboot of Man of Steel or any of these soft things that happen, the story to kind of put all of those elements that came before into one sort of volume is this mini, right? So even though it was a story, it was wrapped around in a story, just kind of took all the elements, it trimmed it and pruned it a little, and updated it a tiny bit, made it a little more serious type of deal. So it's kind of like the first chapter 1 thing, or maybe even Daredevil's origin, which by Roger McKenzie and who was it? Roger McKenzie and and Frank Miller, right? So the only person that really tried to nail down the Golden Age and or um, Earth 2 Batman would be Roy Thomas in The Secret Origin. Golden Age Batman, right? So this would take the original story, kind of show you what's still there, right? They don't give you time, they just say it's yesterday, right? So they come from a movie. See, Thomas Wayne tried to protect his wife. And this one, it goes back to her heart giving out. And then he just runs off. And let's see. And it has Uncle Philip, right? Who was established. So Uncle Philip takes care of him in this version, right? And then we see the training thing, but we also add in the element of disguise, that he's able to disguise himself, right? But he's learning that while being in the production, right? And Bruce Wayne not wanting to play leads, loving to play the character roles and connecting with Julie Madison and having this moment. So Julie Madison's in this. See him still studying and working, even though he has a long-term girlfriend, right? And then she goes off to Broadway and leaves him here, and that's when he's going to start to go to work. And then we have the same sort of thing where the bat comes in, and it'll have that omen. But we see Batman disguised to kind of do his detective work, and then he shows up as the Batman doing this thing. This is by Marshall Rogers and Terry Austin with Roy Thomas, right? It's taken the first Batman story that's here and adding a lot more story to it, right? You know, subplots, talking to Julie Madison, right? It's a real fun sort of thing, him interacting with Commissioner Gordon thing, right? They check out the person who's killed, they think his son did it, right? And you hear about the other partners. He decides to leave. Batman goes after him. He makes short work of him. This stuff is really gorgeous. All right. And then this guy gets put in the glass. Batman this time just tosses the thing at it, beats up this guy. And then as we saw in the original story, he goes to kill him. Batman stops him, explains why he did it. But this time the guy tries to escape. And then by mistake, and so it softened it to being like a, well, I don't know, would it be a comic code version of the original Batman story? But Batman still like fitting in for his kind, right? It's kind of more like the Shadow, right? And then longer talk, and then we have talking to Julie Madison, but at this time he just got home and he's as the Batman, right? So this gives you, I think since I believe All-Star Squadron was the Earth 2, this would be the Earth 2 version. This is like the first time, even though there's some stories which in the Batman series, which not in the Golden Age, but in the Silver Age, I think at least a couple where they had the Earth 2 Batman there too. And I think he's also in the Brave and Bold, at least the last issue, right? So there we go. We got through it. We did the Batman's origin, all the pre-crisis stuff, and we get to see how a writer or writers kind of build on the origin. And then we have, like any genre, the revisionists who would take that origin and kind of lay it out into a nice, clean sort of origin, right? And that would be taking all of the Silver Age stuff and saying it happened, just not kind of, just trimming and pruning it, similar to like chapter 1, which is the best description, because Man of Steel is a little bit different, even though even that has a lot of elements that was in the Silver and Golden Age Superman. So yeah, I guess that's about it. So the next video we're gonna go through, I guess, to give you a precursor, since I'm still here, right? It's gonna be, the plan is to be 3 parts, depending on obviously the interest. That's how quick I'll do these. So the next part will be obviously Batman Year One, but to kind of make it like this, Denny O'Neil noticed that it was kind of sparse. So we have the Legends of the Dark Knight that kind of play around this. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do the Long Halloween, because that's kind of like the next year, like that's like the Earth 2, the Year 2 version. It's monthly, but this plays in the same sort of time frame. At least the first one. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go through all of them, but at least the first one. But it's kind of like Batman's first kind of regular adventure, where this is more pretty much centers around Jim Gordon. And then there were some Zero issues, which I don't have, but obviously when I'm doing it, I'll have the Zero issues so you can see how they fleshed out Batman's origin, different from the original one, and how it was, it was a total reboot. It wasn't, I've shown you all of the elements of Batman's origin, and this kind of will have a bunch of elements that are done differently. And then the third part, hopefully they don't do another change later. I finally got it. I have the Year One trade, the 0 year trade, and I have the Zero issue, because this is not in there, the Zero issue, and I also have one of the few variant covers that's kind of a throwback to obviously the original cover here, right? So that's what's to come. So it just depends how quickly I do them. Is on interest. Also, I have to kind of let these kind of sit to see if it gains some interest. But I was enjoying getting these books and seeing them and going through them, and as I was waiting, other bits came together. So I'm glad I did it now, because I had some elements of Batman's origin. It was just going to be looking through these books, but the Bill Finger, Bob Kane stuff, felt they need to get in there. So I guess that's it. Hope you come back and let me know what you think. Spin Rack out.